Can you believe it? Generation 8 is almost over. When Generation 7 was coming to a close and Sword and Shield were about to come out, I did a video called Is Gen 7, or rather was Generation 7, actually any good? Because it was a pretty controversial time for Pokemon, and this review was not like a formal review. That's not something I'm good at doing, but I can give you my opinion. And yeah, I have my opinions about the generation, not just Sword and Shield, by the way. Sword and Shield, its DLC, all of the other games that came out around it, the side games, the remakes, the spin-offs, the Pokemon cards, the TV show. I have opinions about it all, and this all culminates to the Generation 8 experience, what made up this region, and exactly what it was that made up this period in time, this moment before we move on to Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. So this is sort of my informal review. Was Generation 8 any good? And by the way, the recap on Generation 7 was that it left me feeling, after I watched it, kind of disappointed, but also optimistic for the future. So the main question of today's video is, did Generation 8 deliver on Generation 7's promises of the future of the Pokemon world? And I'll leave that video linked below. Also linked below is a link to today's sponsor, and a huge thank you to Whatnot. Whatnot are a live buying and selling platform. They are on both desktop and the app, which is the thing linked below, and I have a little bit of a presence over there that I'm trying to build up. If you're anything like me, I believe this sponsor has a real value for you. Maybe you love collecting Pokemon cards and love getting stuff at a good deal. Maybe you like opening packs just for the fun of opening packs, or maybe you've got some Pokemon cards that you need to sell fast to get cash. And you could list it up somewhere online, I suppose, and it would take time to list it and then to sell it. Or, rather than taking the perfect picture, coming up with the perfect title, making up all the descriptions, making sure the details are right. What does it mean? Mint or near mint or close to lightly played? Am I going to get in trouble with the person who's buying this thing? No. None of that. You do it via live selling on Whatnot. This is the future of selling all of your collectibles. Trust me, you are live and people watch the card in real time. All you need to do is come up with the title. Just list what the item is. Heck, you can list Pokemon card number 1. People are going to see in real time what that Pokemon card is, what that pack is, and be able to know exactly the quality they're going to get. On top of that, the sale is done within a matter of minutes, which means you don't have to wait a whole week for the auctions to end. And my favorite thing about it is the relationship that you have with the people who are watching you. Having an actual conversation about the thing being sold and knowing that it's going to a good home, rather than this very impersonal thing where you never even speak to the person buying your cards. It's good for a collector community. And of course, I start all of my prices for all my cards as low as £1. I'll be starting all my single booster packs at that price. So if no one else bids, then you get your booster packs for £1. That's just the way it goes. And if you're not comfortable paying more than £1, you don't have to bid. And to celebrate Whatnot being live here in the UK on Monday the 13th at 7 PM GMT, I'm going to be giving away free packs of Silver Tempest to you. All you got to do is make sure you're following me and you got a chance for winning some packs of Silver Tempest. So click that link at the top of the description. And to help us see in Whatnot here in the UK with a bang, I'm going to be cracking open a box of first edition Fossil. I am very excited for this one. So whether you want to take part in that box break or just come along and get some free packs of Silver Tempest, click that link at the top of the description, and thank you to Whatnot for sponsoring this video. Now, let's get on with the kind of informal review of Generation 8. Was it any good? Thanks, Whatnot. And we'll start with the main feature of the generation, the games. In this gen, of course, we got Sword and Shield, its DLCs, Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, and Legends Arceus. That's 3/4 releases over the course of the 3 years, which is quite a lot of content. No, there was no middle or sequel game to Sword and Shield. I think the DLC was the perfect answer to Sun and Moon's Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon were good games. They were better than Sun and Moon, but they skew-ifted the story quite a lot to make room for the new elements coming in. And the new elements coming in didn't really constitute more than a DLC's worth of content. Pokemon listened to our feedback and gave us the Isle of Armor and the Crown Tundra. The Isle of Armor and the Crown Tundra, which don't alter the story of Sword and Shield at all. They further enhance it, but also give us new things to go and investigate. Both the Isle of Armor and the Crown Tundra feel like improvements on the wild area from Pokemon Sword and Shield, which feels a little bit dead and empty. And while I'll admit they definitely need more things to do in the wild area, running around picking up a bunch of like random shiny objects that are just basically random items isn't my idea of exciting. It's fun to see the open and aliveness of those wild areas with Pokemon roaming around them with more dynamic weather and slightly more exciting areas. The wild area is very much one note for pretty much the whole thing. I guess there's also the Dusty Bowl or the Lake of Outrage, but the aesthetic really doesn't change much. The DLCs, along with the wild areas, also brought with them some really fun other features. So like the Isle of Armor had a lot of battle focused stuff, including the stuff that you can do in the dojo, where you can take on, like, I'm pretty sure, like, really powerfully trained IV bred Pokemon to become the master of each type. And then the Isle of Armor was a whole big lore dump with a bunch of legendary Pokemon and legendary Pokemon side quests. The Max Raid lair is also the most refined version of the Max Raid Den. Being able to play with other people online and shiny hunt that way has been a lot of fun. Ultimately, I was very impressed with the increasing quality of where we were at last generation with Generation 7, hugely so. I also think Sword and Shield did a much better job of like taking a step back and not basically interrupting the character every 5 seconds. In fact, at this point in time, I find Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon unplayable. As in, I've genuinely tried to play through them and I get, I don't know, maybe a trial in, and then I get really bored because I'm just so sick of walking on routes, meeting other characters and having them explain the entire plot to me before getting to the next route and having the whole thing happen again. Meanwhile, in Sword and Shield, there is much, much less of that. I've played through the game about 4 or 5 times since it came out, and yeah, I'm really happy with those games. I think there's a lot of interesting ways to play them, but there could definitely be more challenging things to do. I think even a Nuzlocke has got to be relatively easy in Sword and Shield compared to other games. But all in all, difficulty and gameplay wise, I think we're moving in a positive direction. I hope to see us continue to move in a further positive direction in Scarlet and Violet. It's not quite where I want it to be yet. It's still a fair ways to go to get where I want it to be, but like, I felt genuinely positive about it. Of course, there might be a little bit of bias because Sword and Shield are set in the Galar region, which is inspired by the UK. So over this last generation, there's been a lot of UK themed sort of celebrations around the region. There was the Pokemon bus just after the games came out that I got invited to go on with Pokemon. There was the Pokemon World Championships. There were all of these extra things, and I myself personally have gone and explored all of the towns that inspired the region of Galar, and so I've really got to feel like this game is my home. The Pokemon that are in the region, my favorite of which I believe is Eldegoss at the moment, that's pretty much my favorite, reminds me of home so much. The entire Turffield area is inspired by an area just 10 minutes down the road from me, and so it makes me so happy to kind of, every time I go to Turffield, I'm like, yep, this is my home. In fact, the starting area of Galar looks like my hometown. With, of course, Wyndon being the final stop on your Galarian journey, it feels like my journey, going to London, where I went to university to study and become better at what I do here on YouTube. So yeah, the Galar region really hits home for me and is one of my favorites. I think if I was trying to be a bit more objective about it, I probably actually prefer the Alola region, the way that it looks, the Pokemon that live there generally. I have so many favorite Pokemon in the Alola region. It's just a shame there's a lot that lets down the Alola games. I think all 3 of the starters, Grookey, Scorbunny, and Sobble, are really, really cool. I'm not as fond on their evolutions. I think the legendary dogs, I mean, they're the same Pokemon, Zacian and Zamazenta, really, but I don't dislike them at all. Eternatus, I really like, but I'm really sad that there was a lack of extended lore about it, even when there were DLCs to play in as well. Like, at least with Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, the whole point was that they expanded on the lore of Necrozma. They didn't do that here, despite the fact that there seems to be some subtext about like Calyrex involved in the history of Zacian and Zamazenta, but it's never explicitly told to us, and the implicit lore building, there just isn't quite enough there to connect it all together in my view. Calyrex, Glastrier, and Spectria all feel very separate still from the Eternatus story, and so I definitely have liked to have learned more about that. Oh, also, we got some cool regional variants. The regional Galarian birds, I think I prefer them to the regular, like, Cantonian birds. All in all, very, very happy with this one. Then came the time for Sinnoh remakes, and of course we got Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, and Legends Arceus. If you've been around on this channel for any amount of time, you know my thoughts on this. Legend Arceus, it rocks. It's a brave new direction for Pokemon. They're experimenting with all the things that fans have been begging for ages. I think it's wonderful. Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, it's just worse Diamond and Pearl in my opinion. Even if you personally think it's better than the original Diamond and Pearl, I still think it's worse than Platinum. That's just me. I've talked about those critiques in other videos, so I'm not going to go too much into them here, but yeah, Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, not my cup of tea. Legends Arceus, very much so. Lots of lore building, lots of world building. I love this. I would love to see Legends games for every other region. I think it would be amazing to see. And again, there are a million videos on YouTube reviewing why Legends Arceus is so good. Don't get me wrong, there are still improvements that need to be made, the most crucial of which is graphically. In the caves in Legends Arceus, the white outlines are just ridiculous. This is 2022. What are we doing here? However, where Pokemon did look absolutely stunning, also part of Generation 8, Pokemon Snap. New Pokemon Snap. is stunning. It's Pokemon looking better than they've ever looked. In fact, all of the kind of spin-off titles that came out this generation also look great. Pokemon Unite, which I personally don't play, so can't have much of an opinion on, but graphically, like, it looks really clean. I really like the way the Pokemon look there. And again, new Pokemon Snap, the Pokemon look absolutely beautiful. It immerses me in the world, and though I've only played the game the once, and I haven't really played the DLC tracks, that week when I was playing new Pokemon Snap for the first time was really exciting. I never really played the original Pokemon Snap that much, so to me there wasn't a lot of nostalgia here, but I found the story to be fun. There was this kind of lore and deep history that tied back to stuff from Kalos that people might not know about. I did a whole video about that in relation to Jirachi, so there was kind of a secret story in there that I liked for Pokemon theory reasons, but genuinely I just thought it was a beautiful game and a great representation of what Pokemon should look like. This generation we also saw Pokemon Cafe Mix and Mystery Dungeon. They were not games that I played, so I can't really talk too much about them, but do they look good? Yeah, they look good. You'll have to let me know your review for them in the comments down below. And so yeah, when it came to the games, this really felt like a big improvement from the era of Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. Like, I really felt like we were moving in a hugely positive direction. Still not where I want it to be. I'm hoping Scarlet and Violet can push to that, but definitely moving in a really, really positive direction. There weren't any creative choices that I absolutely hated in this game. I still can't understand why the experience share isn't something you can turn off. I guess Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, though to be fair, a lot of Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl's problems were problems that existed in Diamond and Pearl. I just think the additions that they added to the game didn't make up for the problems that they didn't solve, which they had already solved in Platinum. But also, I feel like they added new problems with Pokemon Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, namely the hopping animation of all the Pokemon that just want to let you know that they love you, and you're sitting there thinking, dude, stop. I'm not feeling the love back. You're taking up so much of my time. Pokemon, unfortunately though, this generation was the generation where COVID was happening. This took over the world and was unignorable. These were the games keeping us company while we were locked indoors. As a result, there wasn't as much of an opportunity to go out and explore, to play with other friends, to play cards. Like, I started playing competitive at the beginning of Sword and Shield and made a Zacian deck that I was really excited about, and I was able to go to one event before ultimately I had to stop because we couldn't travel anywhere. It has been a stressful generation of Pokemon. Thankfully, the content here, whether it's the doing the max raid layers together and doing the max raid community days that Sarah B. Joe started up during the kind of peak of COVID, or whether it's the shiny hunting and racing in Legends Arceus, this has been the generation for streamers and community online. I've been very grateful to be able to share my time loving Pokemon with those of you online, and this generation has definitely lent into that, though I'm sure it could have lent into it more. I'm sort of excited to see what Scarlet and Violet are going to do with the multiplayer feature, where you can have multiple people in the game at once. I think that is going to blow the minds of challenge run people and content online. I really think the world of Pokemon challenge run content is about to change forever. In terms of the Pokemon cards though, they have been looking better than ever. In terms of modern Pokemon, and I'm talking everything from sort of X and Y up, some of the full arts have looked good, but a lot of them have looked very cookie cutter. They've looked like the same 3D graphical render of Pokemon, and I just don't think they look very exciting. But this generation introduced the alternate art, which got everyone, and again over the course of the pandemic, talking about Pokemon cards again. Obviously, Pokemon cards came in big because of the Logan Paul stuff, and that was also part of this generation, but realistically, that was happening at a response to an already booming Pokemon card market that was coming from the generation prior with Hidden Fates. Hidden Fates had got everyone excited about Pokemon when they saw this shiny Charizard card that sold for $10,000. Now, it wasn't worth $10,000, and you can get that same card for like $200 today, but it got people like Logan Paul interested, and then they started making content, and then everyone was interested in Pokemon cards. I, as a longtime Pokemon card collector and fan, felt valid in like, oh wow, I can actually go out and buy some of these cards, and I'm not super worried about the entire market being destroyed or crashing because I know what I'm doing in terms of Pokemon cards. I know what I'm looking into buying, and for me, it's justified me wanting to buy some of these beautiful and rare alternate arts. I think the alternate arts are just stellar. Pokemon cards have always been about the artwork for a lot of people, and while I am enjoying building decks and playing competitive again now that events are back on, at the same time, collecting these artworks, I mean, this Charizard VMAX is absolutely nuts. I can't deny that both as a player and as a collector, Pokemon cards are in the best shape they have ever been since the WotC era of Pokemon cards. We're talking since like 2000, 2002, you know what I mean? Obviously, things from past generation have continued to maintain through this generation. Pokemon Go, Pokemon Tournament, I know there are still competitive events for Pokemon Go, I really haven't played much this generation, it just hasn't interested me as much. Pokemon Masters has also sort of been part of this generation, and I'll admit, when Pokemon Masters launched, I really liked it, but I've played it less and less as time has gone on. That said, I still do really enjoy jumping in when a new character is announced just to try and unlock that character, download them, and read about their story and their lore. Pokemon Masters is so well put together when it comes to the lore of the characters, and you know, I play a little bit of the story here and there. When I like stretch out and I look at the Pokemon franchise, I can understand why it's the biggest grossing multimedia franchise. Look at them, they've got their fingers in every pie. This generation, they've got the main game, DLC for that game, they've got remakes and then reimaginings when it comes to Legends Arceus, they've got recreations of old spin-off games as well as new takes on those spin-off games with Pokemon Snap. They're on your phone with Pokemon Go and Pokemon Masters. If you like this kind of gameplay, then you have access to Pokemon Unite, or and again, a very different style with Pokemon Tournament that's still going on the Switch. You've got Pokemon Home connecting all these services together, which I'll admit is a little lackluster. It is literally a storage system. I'd love if there was a battle simulator in there. Of course, we actually just had announced that the battle simulators of Stadium and Stadium 2 are coming to Switch Online. That's not something I'm going to partake in, but it is just a thing that's coming as part of this generation. The Pokemon cards are looking better than ever. The Pokemon TV series, which I realized I didn't really talk about in this Journeys, well, I don't watch a lot of it. I watch an episode here and there, and the way that people herald this series and talk about what a good culmination of everything it is, I can't disagree. It's been really fun to see Ash and Go travel around all these different areas. I'm super excited to see where they're going to go in the future and whether they're going to continue just doing more Journeys, because it really seems like they could. Now Ash is battling out to become the champion of champions, and that's all really incredibly exciting. And all of these things with Scarlet and Violet on the horizon, the open world game that you're going to be able to challenge the gyms in any order, which is something the Pokemon fans have wanted since the very beginning. This is a generation that, to me, despite the fact that it started with this whole Dexit thing, spells to me that Pokemon are listening. They're listening to what the fans want. They're trying to be absolutely everything and everywhere, and I believe that Pokemon are moving in a positive direction. Given that they're pumping out so much content, it may be impossible for them to make a perfect game. They will never make a game that is absolutely 10 out of 10, stellar, flawless, no issues. But they are moving in a better and better direction with every single release, and I'm excited to see what's coming next. So my review on Generation 8, yeah, it absolutely lived up to the promise of previous generations that it'll get better. And now the same promise is true for Generation 9. Will Pokemon drop the ball before the 30th anniversary? Will they drop the ball before 1,000 Pokemon? Will they drop the ball before the 10th generation? I hope not. My fingers are crossed, and I'm hoping for good things. But you have to let me know what you're thinking in the comments down below. Thank you again to Whatnot for sponsoring this video. Don't miss out on our Halloween live stream for on the 30th, 6 p.m. GMT. I'm going to be opening up some Lost Origin as well as some other spooky packs, and I will see you over there. The link is, of course, at the top of the description. Thank you all for watching, and of course, so hi, Pokemon Masters.
This is Ash Ketchum. You just watched a video by Birdkeeper Toby. That makes you a Pokemon Master.
A tremendous thank you to those of you who've been supporting this channel year-round on Patreon, but a special thank you to the big patrons of this month, Michael Hornschuch, The Alligator, Jedruben, and Anthony Lee. Thank you.